Hey, welcome to one of our videos here. We're calling Pro Tips for Relationships. But one thing that we're actually asking right now in this current time where this video is being recorded during the COVID-19 stay-at-home orders and crisis and all these things is what is essential in relationships? What's essential in parenting? And so my name is Matt Stahlbaum. This is my wife, Jessica. And this is Emily. We all are from East Coast Christian Center. We all play different roles in different parts at church here. And so we wanted to talk, and I really want to interview these two mothers who are incredible mothers and who have 15 years of mothering experience, 16 years of mothering experience.
Yeah.
And so we're not like resident, 87-year-old, great grandmothers, but you guys are in the thick of it. You're in the middle of it. So that's what this is, parenting in the middle of it, in the middle of the crisis, in the middle of the situation, really in the middle of the teenage years. What's our youngest?
We have an 8-year-old girl, a 12-year-old boy, and a 15-year-old boy.
That's right. And what is your youngest? And how old are your children?
My youngest is 9, and then my youngest girl is 9. I have a son who is 11 for a couple more weeks. I have a 15-year-old son and a 16-year-old daughter.
Wow. So you have like 100 children.
I do, yes. And it's hard to remember ages.
I know. Don't get me wrong. I can't remember anything half the time. So yes, we have children ranging from like 8 years old all the way up to 16 years old. And so I wanted to open up with a scripture. Just really, this is for us to think about. May the Lord give you increase more and more, you and your children. It's Psalms 115:14. And that's really the idea that no matter what we're dealing with, God wants to increase us as parents. He wants to grow us in our knowledge and our ability. And He wants to also increase our children and for them to have more and more and them to really walk on the platforms that we're building right now. And so we're doing the best that we can. And our hope is that our children would stand on those platforms one day and supersede us. But I wanted to open up with this question. And I guess I'll ask you this first, Jessica. How has things changed in your parenting over 15 years? Think about go all the way back to like when Reagan, our firstborn, was just born and some of the things that we did and some of the things that we do now. How has it changed?
I think I've gotten a lot more lax, and I don't know if it's because I had a boy, and then a girl, but I think the boys would definitely say I'm way easier on our daughter than I was on them. So your first kid is always kind of like this test pilot. You're like, I for sure did not give Reagan sugar for like 2 years. And my dad brought this up the other day. I totally forgot that I did this, but I was like, cookies are yucky for Reagan.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember I used to say that all the
time?
Cookies are yucky for Reagan. And it used to drive your mom nuts because she's like, I just want to give my first grandchild a treat, and I was just like so ridiculous. So, he didn't have sugar for the first 2 years, and I think Adeline probably had Dr. Pepper on her binky or something, like it's just changed. Like you just learn what matters and what doesn't and what to chill out about. Plus you have less time. The more kids you have less time to really focus on whether your kid's going to have a cookie or not.
Yeah, no, that's so true. I love what you said about you learn more and more what actually matters.
Yeah.
And we're not fighting the battles of cookies. We're fighting other battles that are more important.
Right.
What about you, Emily? What are some of the ways that you've changed, even practically as a parent? Like, are you giving your kid cookies now? Like, some of the practical differences as a parent from 16 years ago to today.
Yeah, well, I would totally echo what Jessica said. I thought immediately when you asked her the question, I thought I've definitely become more lax in a lot of areas. I was super strict with my firstborn, but I feel like earlier on in parenting, it was more behavioral and focusing on proper behavior. When you have a 1.5-year-old who throws terrible tantrums like my first 2 children did, who were very strong-willed, it's super behavioral based, and now it's more heart conditions, attitudes, teenagers, things like that. So.
Yeah, that's really good. What about having teenagers? How has that been? Like, is it seem to be more difficult, less difficult? What are some thoughts on having teenagers right now? A 15-year-old boy who's pretty chill, and is pretty, what would be the word, compliant.
He's very compliant.
Right? And a 16-year-old girl who now is driving, right? Yeah. And who's kind of walking, I'm sure she's amazing. I know she is. I know her very well. But she's beginning to experiment with probably freedom and wanting more freedom. How has that changed? Let's start with you on that. Just even having a 16-year-old now, what's that like?
Yeah, driving was the biggest switcheroo because it felt like the very first thing that I needed to let go. It felt like the first step of letting go on a new level of, now you're gone, you're away from me. I'm trusting that the things that I've instilled in you, that you're going to listen to those things and care about them from your heart when I'm not around. And yes, I can track her on my phone, but I don't know what she's doing, what she's saying. I try to keep track of, who's there, who are you going to be with, all that. But there's a element of trust that I have to have in her now, and just letting go. She doesn't want to be with mommy as much as she wants to be with her friends as much. And that was kind of an adjustment for me, just kind of having to let go a little bit and realize I'm not, being with me is not the number one thing anymore. Staying home with mom and doing a puzzle is not as fun as going and playing tennis with her friends. So emotionally, I've had to let go a little bit, and physically, I've had to let go too. And that was an adjustment emotionally for me.
Yeah. What about you, Jessica?
So Reagan has his permit, but he's not driving by himself. But I feel like I need to prepare myself for that. And I'm so glad to hear you say that, so I can be prepared a little more. But I think the biggest thing with teenagers is when you grow up and when you are a teenager, you kind of hear a lot of like, oh, the teenage years and that kind of feeling or attitude. And from the very beginning, I always am like, death and life are in the power of the tongue. And so even when the terrible twos, we never called it the terrible twos, we called it the terrific twos. And no matter how hard it was, we wanted to speak life over that season. So going into the teenage years, I have been trying to do the same thing of like speaking life over it. And I love having a teenager. We have one, and we're going to have another one this year. Hudson's turning 13. And there are definitely like physiological things that are happening in their brains. They'll pull you away, push away from you, but then like, don't leave, like they'll kind of push you away, but like, don't really leave me, mom, and that's happening. And so we're trying to acknowledge those things of like, hey, a lot of stuff is changing in your brain right now. And it's okay that you're having all these different feelings and emotions and swirling things. But I think the more that we communicate, the easier it is. And also, again, speaking life over the situation and just saying, I love having this kid who's now really fun to hang out with and holds a great conversation and is hilarious. Yeah. So we have fun together.
That's right.
Yeah, when you're talking what you're saying right here, I think it's really important that we don't approach a particular age, like a 16-year-old or a 2-year-old, with negative expectations, like this is going to be terrible. Like I've heard people talk about 3-year-olds being worse than 2-year-olds and different things like that. And when they turn 20, it's impossible and all these things. I would say let's not approach it with such a negative blanket over a particular age, but let's also keep our eyes wide open and recognize that there's going to be challenges with every age, and being able to be flexible and learn and grow through those different ages. I had always kind of grew up thinking that when babies are little, you don't get much sleep, right? And life's difficult, and it's like no sleep at all. And then now I'm realizing that with teenagers and 12-year-olds and 8-year-olds, I get less sleep right now. They want to stay up till midnight. Yes. They want to stay up till 2 a.m. Yeah. When they're babies, at least you can just put them in the crib and say, leave me alone. Like I'll get sleep for 4 hours. We'll be over here. No, now they're like dunk, dunk, dunk on the door. And like, what are y'all doing? They're wanting to be in our space. And so don't have expectations like this, especially don't listen to somebody just because they're having a hard time with a 2-year-old. Doesn't mean that you're going to have that same difficult thing, but you will have to overcome those types of challenges. I wanted to switch gears here and ask this question because at the recording of this video, we're in the COVID-19 stay-at-home pandemic state of the world. And I think we're all learning a lot of lessons about our family right now that maybe even 2 months ago, we wouldn't have even considered. Things like we're having more family dinners and we're not having any sports practices and kids aren't at school right now. So with this, I'm asking this question: what is essential in families? Have we missed a little bit of those essential things? Can we retune and even let God prune us a little bit and prune our family, remove some things and add some things in so that we're more fruitful, as John 15:2 would say? What in essential parenting has caused you to reevaluate some things about your family? Have you had any notices or revelations on your family's differences? You do. Would you share that with us?
Yeah, I think we have had a lot more family dinners together. And I think what we realized was wow, it's been a long time since we've had a family dinner together, because all three of our kids are in competitive sports. We're at practice every night of the week. And then on the weekends, between church and sports all over the state of Florida, we're driving all over the place. And yes, we're together, but I think making these intentional times of togetherness and then turning dinner into not just let's eat and stuff our faces and get back to what we want to do, but let's ask some questions. So a couple times during this time, we've said, what's your highs and lows of the day? What's your best and worst? And then one time we played a game, and you really realize who of your kids is the most competitive when you try to play a game with them like this. So everyone went around and said their highs and lows of the day, and you said whoever can rename everyone's highs and lows wins. Like, we had nothing to give them. Like, we weren't really like giving them a prize of like, yeah, like maybe a cookie, but it was just
no cookies
winning.
For Reagan.
No
okay.
Cookies are yucky for Reagan. Yeah. So we did that, and Hudson was like on the edge of his seat. Like, I have never seen him more competitive. He was like, okay, she said that, and he said that, and she said that, and at the end he's like, I'm ready. And he like went on, and he remembered every single thing that they said, and it was fun. It was just a fun moment. Cookie for Hudson.
I would say with that too, we're wanting to have more family dinners, but something I noticed is we don't want to force these family moments because we've got to be a family. We've got to have all these great things.
Well, that's gotten stressful a couple times. We've put these like expectations on ourselves. We're like, oh, we're able to do family dinners 7 nights of the week now, but maybe we don't have to do 7 nights of the week, because it was taking away like the togetherness moment of it. It was making it more like a got to.
Yeah, like you have to answer all these questions at dinner time for us to have a great family and go.
Yes.
And I found myself struggling to pay attention to half the things because I needed a moment. And some of our family dinners have been in the garage. We've opened the garage door, pushed a table out there, and we have a garage where we can let the breeze flow through because we got like a back door, and just had it be more casual and just relax. And those have been great too. What about you? Cool. Have you noticed any differences during this time or things that
Yes,
you're
absolutely. I remember just before this COVID thing started, I was doing this parenting curriculum by myself at home, and it had me rate A, B, and C priorities on what is the most essential thing. And it was really, I feel like God set me up, because it had this list of all the things that are most important to you, and you write down A, B, and C priorities. And I'm marking A on, several of these things, and then I want my children to excel at school. Well, maybe I'd put that as a B to, an A or a B, and then I want my children to excel in sports, and I put a C for that one. And I had this moment where I realized, why is the thing that is the C priority in the list of all the things that they gave me, why does that dominate so much of our time? And I feel like this has been really refreshing to me to be able to realize suddenly the C priority is in its place, and the A priorities have come to their place, where we're communicating more, we're talking more, we're having more family dinners, and it feels like the A, B's, and C's are more lined up, where being emotionally close to them is an A, and school is a B, and sports is a C, and for other people it might be different how they would rate their priorities. Absolutely. But for me, it was a shocker that I felt like I couldn't get out of that sports cycle we were in, and now just to get a breather and to reconnect at supper time, I feel like things are aligned more.
Sure, that's really good. I want to say something about sports. We're a big sports family, and the way that sports can dominate you is when you lose sight of why are sports important? What is the importance of sports? For most kids, they're not going to make the pros, okay? But as a parent, is if we go into the sporting, like my son is playing for the Dallas Cowboys, so doggone it, you little 8-year-old, you better wake up at 5 a.m. and all these things, and you be better, and you better be on the best team, and we're pressuring coaches, and we're pressuring our kids, and all these things. Sports is meant for kids to have an outlet to be successful. It's also meant for them to learn hardship and learn that if they're not good at something or they don't practice, they won't make it. Like you actually have to show up. These are the importance of sports for our family as a homeschool family. We found that it was important for them to get into different environments besides just church and home. So these were the importance, but I've lost sight many times over what the actual importance of sports really is. And I think we can recalibrate. If sports is a C, let's treat it like a C. It's not, my son might make Real Madrid, maybe the best soccer team in the world or whatever. Chances are, probably not, he's going to play intramural soccer at Rockledge or something, right? All right, so let's just change gears again here for a second. Let's ask this question. How would you connect with a son or a daughter if they were kind of being difficult or strong-willed, as Dr. Dobson would put it, which I love that, a strong-willed child. By the way, strong-willed childs there's a lot of strong-willed adults out there. Children just don't know how to market it like we do, right?
Yeah.
And we kind of have our own freedoms and our own problems. So our children are just like small versions of us. But let's ask the question, do you have a tip for like maybe like a boy or a girl if you were dealing with a strong-willed child?
Yeah, I think I read a lot of books. And so there's this book out there called Love and Respect by Dr. Emerson Eggerichs, and talks about how women, girls, really deal in the commodity of love, and men deal in the commodity of respect. And so for Adeline, I have tried to hone in on her love languages. So there's another book called The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman, talks about there's 5 different love languages that people predominantly they receive love and they give love in that way. And so Adeline, she's only 8, but so far I believe that she loves words of affirmation. She gives words of affirmation a lot. And so that's how I kind of figured out that she receives love through words of affirmation. So I try to affirm her all the time and tell her, not only are you beautiful, but you are so wise, and I love that you are so kind, and just affirm those character qualities in her. For the boys, they deal in respect. And so there's a book called Mother and Son's Respect or something like that, and I forget who it's by, but I'm sure we can post it somewhere. But using the term, instead of like telling my boys, I love you, I love you, I love you all the time, I actually use the terms when I can think of it and be forward thinking in it. I'll say, I respect the way that you handled that situation, or I really respect the way that you treated your sister right there. I respect the way that you heard what I said and you went and did it right away, and your immediate obedience really makes me respect you a lot. And so the commodity of boys dealing with respect and girls needing more love has helped us a ton.
That's really good. What about you? What's a way that you've maybe dealt with that situation before?
Yeah, I would say kids are kind of cyclical, or they go through stages, and a couple of my kids have gone through a stage of being argumentative. Mm-hmm. And when I saw that stage approaching with one of my children in particular, we had to have a heart-to-heart, because I like for them to be able to have open, honest conversations with me and question, why do we believe what we believe? Mm-hmm. Why did you want me to do it this way and not that way? And I like them, being able to ask the questions open and honestly. But this started to take kind of a more combative turn of, just kind of conflicting and arguing and things like that. And so we basically had a heart-to-heart right there. And I said, I noticed the trajectory of where you're headed, because this child had told me, I don't want to turn out rebellious. Or she had seen, this was one of my girls who had seen, she had seen some people who had kind of gone down a wrong path. And I said, do you want to stay on the path that you've been on? Because if you're going to bend your trajectory a little bit here, you're going to end up going down this path. If you let rebellion breed in your mind and in your heart, it starts in a little tiny small seed of being combative with, whoever your authority is, your boss, your parents, your teachers. And so just having that heart to heart and knowing her heart of wanting to be honorable and wanting to stay on that same trajectory of not wanting to go down the wrong path, and seeing her, just being able to connect in conversation like that and say, I see this. If you can learn how to respect me, if you can learn how to honor me, even when you totally don't understand it, you're going to stay in the trajectory that you want to stay in.
That is awesome. We're about here at the end of this video, but I wanted to offer up a thought here at the end. There's a great book called Mindset, and it's called The New Psychology of Success by Carol Dweck. And this isn't a Christian book, but it was a book that actually changed the way that I thought about success. And one of the things is that we have to kind of get rid of this misnomer, is that our kids are gifted. Like, they're just gifted at math and gifted at sports, and you're good because you're gifted. And at the end of the day, people are good at things because they push hard, they work hard, they work through the struggle, they fight through the resistance. Most of the best athletes in the world actually weren't the most gifted athletes as children or high schoolers. They showed the gifts later in life. Michael Jordan is one of the most famous athletes of all time. He didn't make the varsity squad. Do you know what he did? He worked hard, 6:30 a.m., shooting every morning. A guy, one of the best soccer players in the world, he was on the D team. Mm-hmm. We're all trying to get our A team, but Messi, considered one of the greatest soccer people of all history, was on the D team. Yeah. And what he did is he worked hard. And the same goes through for math and science. A lot of kids that are gifted in high school at math, they get to college and they face a little resistance, because I'm gifted, and they're not used to working for it. They're not used to the struggle. I would encourage you to encourage your children. It's okay to struggle. Yeah. It's okay to learn. It's okay to fail. Our kids have to have these opportunities to gain some freedom and fail, to grow, to learn, to struggle. And I would encourage you that if your kids are struggling or you're struggling, you're actually on a path of success if you keep going. Mm-hmm. Keep fighting. And the Bible says again, the Lord will increase you more and more, you and your children. And that doesn't just come overnight. That comes with years of success, many nights of tears, many nights of prayer, many days of talk and counsel and learning and growing. We're all growing. We're all in the struggle together. I would encourage you as you go through this, rejoice that God is for you. He's on your side, and He wants to bless you in your struggle. Thanks for listening to the pro tips on raising children. Look forward to future videos as we have a singles right now, a married, and a raising children. We'll see you next time.